whose funds have been frozen by this current dispensation. Yeah? Anyway. And he has written a couple of seminal works. One is A Hindu Rashtra, and the other one is The Price of the Modi Years. But today we are here to discuss his forthcoming work, which is called 21 in 91. That was his age in 1991. Now, why 1991? I see a lot of young faces. That's very encouraging. Yeah. 1991, two watershed events happened in this country. One was the demolition of Babri Masjid, which to me personally was the demolition of democracy as envisioned by Mahatma Ji, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Ambedkar, along with all the stalwarts who led the freedom movement. And the second one was the liberalization policies. That again was a World Bank IMF agenda. So Aakar writes about 21 in 91. Could you explain what the book is about?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you to KLA for doing this. I really like coming to LitFests in Kerala. And one reason is that the levels of literacy have meant that the levels of reading are very high. In the space that I work in, a bestseller in India in the English language is 3,000 or 4,000 copies. To become a best-selling author in Kerala, one needs to sell more than 25,000 copies. It's an order of magnitude bigger than the rest of India when it comes to reading. And I think that the rest of us have a lot to learn from the population of this state. So 91, when I was 21, is a departure for two reasons, like you said. One is, though the BJP with the Janasangh name was formed 40 years before that, till 1991, they did not have a single state that they won on their own. But what happens in 1990, in late 1990, is that after 40 years of real struggle, so the Janasangh and the BJP are not able to get more than single-digit national level vote shares till 1991. But what happens 6 months before that is the Rath Yatra. And this is taken across India by Lal Krishna Advani. And more than 3,000 Indians die from the violence that comes after that. But what it also does is that it establishes the BJP as being one of the two dominant parties and puts it on the road to becoming the dominant party, which it has become now. So the last 35 years has shown to the BJP what the route to success is. And the route to success is that you go after minorities through legislation, through exclusion, through ideology, through rhetoric, and you will win states and you will win the country, which they have. Absolutely. And the second departure is that it was felt that if we go through the process that is referred to as liberalization, India will match the advanced nations in terms of economic development. So India and China were together in 1991. So there's a per capita GDP for both countries of about $350. Today, they are 5 or 6 times ahead of us. So my thesis is that of these two national projects that we began in 1991, we succeeded in one and we failed in one. We failed on the side of the economy. And many people, including in the government, will give us figures and data. But the one thing that I think shows that this was failure is that in 2014, Bangladesh was roughly 30% behind India in a per capita GDP, and it has caught up since. China, obviously, like I said, has gone 5 or 6 times in front. So to us, success has become the fact that Bangladesh has caught up. And I don't see that as success, I would see that as failure. And on the side of the communalization of politics, I think we have succeeded. That the BJP has succeeded in having a national focus on minorities, which will reward it through votes. And I think the last 35 years has shown that to be true.
Aakar, I think we should pick up on the China angle. And you were saying something which I remember. Am I audible?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. We were together in Perambra, in case you remember. Perambra is on the outskirts of Calicut, in Dignity College. And Aakar mentioned something quite interesting there. That is how trade happens in Southeast, despite national animosities between China and Vietnam, Vietnam and Malaysia, Malaysia and Indonesia. Trade happens. But look at our state. We have very inimical neighbors. We make enemies of our neighbors. And I am from Malabar. I call myself a Malabari, not a Keralite. Malabar is a place that encourages trade. Trade happens only if there is peace, communal peace. So could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So there are two things that China does very differently from India to arrive at where it is. The first is that the state takes up a greater role in what the economy does, which is the opposite of what we were told in India. 1991 to us was a retreat of the state, that the state would cede space to the private sector, the corporate sector. The corporate sector would lift India up into a developed nation status. That did not happen. China took the opposite route, that it would do through what is called industrial policy. It would first assess the world and say that China is dependent on the external world for oil and gas. It also came to the conclusion that the development of the internal combustion engine, which had happened for more than 100 years, China did not hold any of the patents in that space. They belong to the companies in the US, Germany, and in Japan. So to compete in the automobile sector, they would need to look at something else. So they determined that the solution to both of these issues, on the side of the energy dependency and on the side of the automobile business, they would have to do something new. And that something new, obviously, is the electrification of the cars. They dominate the world. Last year, in 2025, they exported 70 lakh cars to the world. And on the side of the consumption and generation, they went solar and nuclear, hydro, that's right. And today, for those who might not know, China makes about 2/3 of all the world's solar cells. More than half of the wind power comes out of China. It installs more nuclear power than the rest of the world combined. So that was one difference, that the government would have a larger role, the state would have a larger role in development. And that is a road that we did not take. The other thing they did was they determined that they had problems with countries in their neighborhood like we do. So if you look at the ASEAN group of nations, the same problems we have in South Asia, which is correct, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. The problems that we say we have are a cross-border terrorism, partition, animosity towards the various religious groups and so on. These same problems are there in ASEAN. So Singapore was partitioned from Malaysia. Indonesia sent its army officers undercover to commit terrorism in Singapore. They were caught, they were hanged. And when the Prime Minister of Singapore went to Kuala Lumpur and to Indonesia, he went to the graves of those soldiers in Jakarta and he sprinkled flowers on them to put an end to the story. Let's move on. China occupied Vietnam for 1,000 years. So they have the same sort of problems that we have in this part of the world, but they have moved on from that. They are saying that it's okay to trade. We can sort out the political problems later, which is why today the largest component of China's trade goes to the ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and as I said, they have the same issues. You've got a population of countries which are very Buddhist, Burma. You have a lot of Muslims in both in Indonesia and in Malaysia. You've got Hindus there as well. You've got Christians in the Philippines, but they've been able to move past that in a way that we've not been able to. And I would say those are the two things that are separate, that separate them from us.
Yeah, Aakar, I'll pick on that aspect that you mentioned about the religious diversity, which our country also boasts of. But as he is from Gujarat. I'm told Aakar goes to Gujarat only to attend court cases. Otherwise, he's settled in Bangalore. So it's quite unfortunate that we seem to be persecuting our minorities with a vengeance. Could you develop on that?
So after the Babri Masjid fell, in that period, the BJP said that this is the end of what we want. There was a demand for 2 other temples. But what was said, particularly after the demolition and the violence that happened, was that we will draw the line here. More or less, we were told as a society that the BJP would conform to the secularism principle of the constitution. When the BJP separated from the Janasangh, it renamed itself from the Janasangh in 1980. Before a law was passed 6 or 7 years later by Rajiv Gandhi, the BJP voluntarily in its constitution added the word secularism. I think it's in Article 2 of the BJP constitution. But what happened is, after having found that you can do mass mobilization on the issue of communalism, which happened with the advent of Advani, the BJP did not let it go. And so we've seen, when the BJP came to power in 2014, as a journalist for many decades, I had not heard of...
Aakar, I'll interrupt you for a minute. We were talking about something quite interesting that happened in 1991, the formation of the first BJP government. Yeah?
So when the BJP came to power nationally in 2014, it began to set in motion a set of laws that targeted minorities. So in 2015, in Haryana and in Maharashtra, the first laws came which criminalized the possession of beef. What do these laws say? These laws say 2 or 3 things. One is that the burden of proof is not on the state. The person who is accused has to prove that the meat that is in their fridge or in their van is not beef. The second is the laws gave a lot of space to vigilantes to act on behalf of the state. This reversal of burden of proof today is the law, and then they began tightening it. In Gujarat today, the punishment for cow slaughter is life. Now remember that this is an economic crime. The constitution and the law does not say that we don't want cows to be slaughtered because of the Hindu sentiment. They say that we want cows not to be slaughtered because we need more milk and we need the manure and so on. But what the law has done is that, for instance, in 2019, a Gujarat court convicted a man who was accused of serving beef at his daughter's wedding. The police told the court that we have sent the meat to the lab. The lab doesn't know what it is. The court convicted the man, gave him 10 years in jail to say it is your job to show that it is not beef. It is not the police's job. So these are the laws. The judge, it was a judgment that seems to be out of place in the modern world, but it is the law there.
You are also mentioning interfaith marriage, no?
And in 2018, and today this is in 7 BJP states, in 2018, the BJP started passing a series of laws. Uttarakhand was the first state, which essentially mean that Muslims and Hindus cannot marry. There can't be any interfaith marriage. And if you want to marry, if a Muslim wants to marry a Hindu, you have to apply for permission to the government. It is the district magistrate that will determine whether the marriage will go through. In some BJP states, marriages, including marriages that have children, can be undone by the state, saying that this was not the right thing to have done. One more thing on this is that the agency of the woman, an adult woman who says that she has converted her faith freely, is not acceptable to the government. It is the family she's marrying into that has to prove to the magistrate that she was not coerced. So these are the kinds of laws we've been passing. Today, Muslims are the only part of India after 2019 for whom divorce is under the criminal law code. For every other community, it is in the civil code. In 2019, the Supreme Court of India said that a triple talaq delivered in one sitting is not valid, which means that if a husband were to be accused of saying that to his wife, they would not be divorced. After that, the government passed a law saying that if a Muslim man said it, he would go to jail. Now we have this ridiculous situation where I, as a Hindu, if I am accused of saying these three words to my wife in one sitting, we are not divorced, it is not a crime. If a Muslim man is accused of saying the same three words to his wife, they are not divorced because the Supreme Court has said it's not valid, but it is a crime. So we are doing this kind of thing with our society to which there is no end. And the reason why I feel it has succeeded as a program is that the BJP keeps getting rewarded for it, as we have seen in Bihar, as we have seen in Maharashtra. We have seen the fact that they have dominated national politics now for 12 years, and there doesn't seem to be too much of a sign that they're going to relinquish.
This particular project of legislation, which you said targeted at minorities, what is the situation in the state that you are in now, Karnataka, which is ruled by the Congress?
Correct. So before the BJP lost Karnataka, they passed the love jihad law there. Correct. This was Bommai. And what happened after that, though the Congress came to power, they have not been able to undo the law. And I think this is one reason. I can only speculate. One reason I think is that even if a party is well-meaning, it does not want to fight battles that are not core to what it believes. It wants, absolutely. It does not want to be on TV channels every day fighting on the communal principle. And I am afraid, I think one reason for that is that it thinks it will lose in the public domain. That the Congress believes that a large number of people are supportive of these laws, which is why they don't want to take them head on.
So, Aakar, would you say that it is politically expedient, but it's morally wrong?
I would say it is morally wrong. I don't know. I'm not particularly religious myself, so I don't attribute a morality to things. But I think on the ethical side of it, it is wrong. If we are to consider a political parties purely from the pragmatic point of view, they might be right. But my point is more as a reflection of what it shows on us as a society, that even so-called secular parties are not able to push back on these laws, which means that we are going in one direction and we are not able to come back. I would see that as a success in terms of the BJP.
And Aakar, there's something quite interesting about Karnataka. You know this Idina people, Dr. Basu and all, they do amazing work as civil society. Could you expand on that?
So when the Congress fought the last election, just before that for a few months, a lot of groups in Bangalore and outside decided that the BJP was a threat to the fabric of society and needed to be combated in a particular way. And so several groups got together and started mobilizing people, making sure that they knew what the issues were, through social media, through physical events, a lot of activities. And they tried their best to make sure that whatever they could do as individuals, they did to keep the BJP out. That was the primary goal. And I think a lot of civil society groups in India feel the same way, that they don't necessarily have a strong connection with any one political party, but they are repelled by what the BJP is doing, and they see it as being dangerous and want to combat that.
How hopeful are you of our future?
I'm not very hopeful. So when I was 21 in 1991, even somebody with very meager educational qualification. I have a diploma, so I went to study how to operate looms. But because I went to um, sort of relatively good schools, I had access to the English language in a way that many people at that time did not. It was in Surat, but what happened in 91 is a lot of the privatization meant there was a demand for people like accountants, lawyers, journalists. All of that space expanded quite a lot very soon. And between 1991 and 2010, these 20 years, a lot of people from my generation benefited, though we were not more qualified or smarter than the people today. That is gone now. What we could do, what the opportunities we had when I was 21 are not today actually available in those sectors at least. They're not there in media. And one reason for that is that we haven't been able to close the gap between having a modern economy where people can transition into the middle class and having something which is very developing, very third world. Most of the country still sits in the latter part. And the only routes we have for a very large part of the middle class is to work in Dunzo and Uber and so on, where there is no real chance to go up the ladder. You go there, which is an opportunity that they have, but I think it doesn't give them the space to be able to go up in the way that we had. And I'm a pessimistic on the side of the economy for that reason. On the side of the politics and the communalism, I'm also pessimistic because of the fact that we don't have the capacity to push back. The best parts of this country, the best parts of India are parts like Kerala, which are not large enough to be able to act as an antidote. I live in the south because I can't live in Gujarat anymore. I don't want to live in the north of India. I find that people of my mindset, I'm much more compatible with people in the south. But we are not a large enough part of the population to be able to resist what the BJP is doing, and which is why I feel that we will continue down this road. To be honest, we have become very comfortable in this space. If the largest parts of our foreign policy are that we stop a Bangladeshi fast bowler from playing in IPL, or we will not let Pakistan play here, and that is what this country is about, the news is about, we are going to remain very small. And I think we have remained very small. There is no ambition today, whether in government or in society, that India will compete with China or the US. We don't have that anymore. We have let that go. We had that 30 years ago. But I think a realization has come that we are who we are. That is not what we can do. And we will go down this road that we have chosen.
That's quite an interesting point that you made, being comfortable in the south. But if you look at the delimitation that's going to happen, how do you view that? I think we'll have diminishing returns, right?
Well, the North will need to consider two things. So there are two ways of looking at it. So in 1971, when the last delimitation happened, Kerala has fewer seats than UP, which is true. We all know that. 1:4. But in 1971, 50 years ago, each of those seats in Kerala had exactly the same number of voters as the seat in UP. So though they had more seats, it was based on the fact that they had a larger population. Each of the constituencies had the same number. That has changed now. Because of the dropping fertility rates in Kerala and the South generally speaking, each of the Lok Sabha seats in Kerala has far fewer people in the constituency and voters than the people in the UP. So one aspect of democracy is to say that doesn't sound fair, that UP should get more power because of the fact that one voter in UP has much less Absolutely. So that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is clearly from the way that we in the South look at it, saying that why are we being punished for doing our, yes, that our government and our society has performed well. We have brought our fertility rates low at a point in the country's time when population was thought to be a very large problem. We are the ones who have got the literacy rates up. We are the ones with the high human development index. Why are we being punished? So that is the other way of looking at it. I don't think there is a clear answer, but I think there has to be wisdom from the North to pacify the South. This is not an issue, I think, because the power is all with the North. They need to be able to be generous with us in the South. We recognize what you're saying. Here is how we'll do it. Unfortunately, that is not how Modi behaves. And I'm quite fearful of what it is that he will come up with.
You know Radha Kumar. Radha, in fact, is on a mission to motivate the chief ministers of the southern states to put up an united front on this delimitation thing, which I don't think these people have viewed very seriously, because it's going to affect the next generation. For us, it's okay. But what about the next generation? We'll become second-class citizens.
We will be creating, Sudhir, a problem that doesn't exist right now. In our time, we have not had the North-South divide, because for the last 50 years, after the language issue died down, we have not had it for a very long time. We will be reviving a new issue. Also, and it comes with a certain things. I don't know how many people in the South approve of the fact that again, these are all very, very recent things. We excluded only Muslims from the citizenship law. I don't know if there are too many people in the South who are amenable to having laws like that. This comes to us from the instinct that the North has, because they are the ones who went through partition and so on. And to my mind, if the North and the government and the BJP do not show great maturity in dealing with delimitation, we will be reviving problems that don't actually exist and add them to a list of problems we already have. And it will be totally destructive to the polity, because all the focus then goes there. You don't have enough national energy to spend on the meaningful things, which is education, health, making sure people have jobs. All we are doing every day is fighting each other on the basis of the fact that we are from a different community.
So, Aakar, you said you are fearful of the future of this country. Could you be a bit more optimistic?
I think I can, but as a writer, I have to be honest with myself and my readers and look at the facts and be able to see what they tell you. If Bangladesh has, if success, like if you read the newspapers, if you watch television, if you hear the Prime Minister, what you hear is India is the fastest growing economy in the world, fourth largest economy in the world, and all of that. The one point, or the one datum that is not spoken of is, why did Bangladesh catch up with us? It was 30% behind in 2014. So to us, success has become the fact that we are equal today with Bangladesh, because we can't compete with China. The way that the world has developed very quickly in terms of technologies, we don't have the mastery and the ownership of almost any of them. And one reason is that though we have very large companies in this country, the Ambanis and the Adanis, none of them have either a consumer-facing product or a tradable product. The Gautam Adani fortune has been built on things that are ports, mines, access to the airports and things like that, which are not actually tradable. You can only do that within the country. Similarly for the Ambanis, Spectrum Petroleum, you can only deal with those businesses here. You're not going out like Samsung is or like Xiaomi is and selling your product to Europe or to Africa. And I think given the absence of that, it will be very difficult for us to be able to see what 10 years from now, the state of the economy looks like, because we are too large a nation to be able to support this number of population with the very meager businesses that we have.
We have a shared passion, Aakar, for the media. Aakar is one of the very few journalists in this country who did both English as well as regional language journalism. He was editor of Midday in English and Bhaskar, right? Dainik Bhaskar in Gujarati. How would you look at that experience?
I think that the English media, the English newspaper editor edits the newspaper to the left of the reader. English media is much more, or used to be. I'm talking of 20 years ago when I was an editor. English media is more liberal than the reader on social issues, on issues of communalism. So even before the issues of same-sex came in the national domain, the press in English was always very liberal on these issues, because that is the background of the people who came into the English medium. That they were from cities, most of them were monolingual. Their first language was actually English. They were fairly global in their outlook. Gujarati newspapers are not like that. They are very conservative. On the issue of communalism, the Gujarati newspapers favor. So Gujarati newspapers are quite unique. They are anti-government, but Hindutva. So they will fight the government on issues that lead to things like crime or corruption. But on the issue of communalism, they will back what the BJP does. And this is uniformly the case for all of the Gujarati media. This is also the case for the Hindi media, I should say, and has always been. That even if a newspaper or a channel sees itself as being anti-establishment, that anti-establishmentarianism shows itself only on the issues not related to Muslims or not related to Christians when it comes to propagation. On the rest of it, they might defy the government, but on this, they will stand with the government, which was not the case in the English press of 20, 30 years ago, but has become the case now.
Shall we conclude this session with the last question? Again, this representation in the newsrooms, that's been a contested space. Fortunately, women are there now in newsrooms, but if you look at the traditionally disadvantaged sections of society, your Dalits, SC, ST, Adivasis, they don't feature in the newsrooms. So how do we address that issue?
It can only be done if it's done proactively from the top. So it is true that particularly in the cities of India, in Bombay in particular, in two businesses, which is media and the advertising space, there has always been a large number of women who have done well. Yes, so when I came into journalism, people like Bachi Karkaria, Deena Vakil and all, these were all people who were at the level of the editor, which we do not find in the rest of the corporate sector. That women, Olga, and similarly with ads as well. So if you look at the larger agencies, O&M and so on, they had a large number of women there. There was a very unusual event in the Pioneer newspaper about 30 years ago, when somebody was given a column to write on Dalit issues, a man called Chandrabhan Prasad. He said it was the first time that a Dalit had been given a column in a national newspaper. And I can't think of too many people who've been given. It was owned at that point by this man called Chandan Mitra, who later went to the BJP. Indeed. But I think the only way to correct this is for the newsroom to recognize that it is exclusionary and to bring in people who are more diverse. The problem is that we are going through a time in the media's history when media is actually shrinking. And so I don't see that it has enough time left to be able to correct itself.
I think we'll call it a close. You have some questions?
I have a couple of questions that I'll read out. The first one is, as a society, Indians are walking backward. Many rituals, superstitions, impact of faith and caste on human life are on the rise. Therefore, in a sense, whether the present government, not one that the present society deserves, at least a majority of them. I think the BJP is a pretty good reflection of the society in this country. If you look at Gujarat, which is, I think, the most conservative state in the union, the BJP has been in power there 30 years. And this is in a two-party state where only one party wins both Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha elections. There is no room for a second party. And I think generally speaking, people are content with what the BJP is doing. I think that is one reason why I am pessimistic.
I'll interrupt you there, Aakar, because look at the policy of BJP, how they are excluding the largest minority country from entering the legislature.
True. What he says is true, that this is the first time in the history of India that we do not have a Muslim in the union cabinet, that of the 240 BJP MPs in the Lok Sabha, none is a Muslim. There is no Muslim BJP MP of the 90 MPs they have in the Rajya Sabha. Last Lok Sabha, 303 MPs, no Muslim. Before that, 282, zero Muslim. So this kind of physical, deliberate exclusion is damaging, but it is okay with the rest of us. We are fine with it. And that's one reason why I believe that this will not change. There's another question, which is that post-91 till 2014, can you comment on why it took about 25 years for the BJP to actually tighten its grip at the center? Did they use this period to break the late portion, read minority persecution, stronger or wanted? I think they learned how to do it. It's not that easy. It seems easy now, but if you think the idols were smuggled into the mosque 40 years before the BJP won its first election, 1951 and 1990. For 40 years, BJP did, if you read the BJP manifestos between 1951 and the 80s, they say the same things that the Congress did. So under Vajpayee in the 70s, the BJP wanted to limit all monthly incomes to 1,000 rupees, that you could not make more than that. If you made more than that, the state would take it. And they wanted a 1:10 gap. So you would have a minimum a monthly income of rupees 100, and whether you were Birla or whether you were the Ambanis, you could only make 1,000 rupees. And then on top of that, the state would take it over. That same BJP also said that you could not have houses of more than 1,000 square yards, that you could only build a house in that. Why were they saying this? Because they were responding to the socialism of the Congress. They did not have any kind of policy of their own because they were not able to develop it. It's only with the Babri Masjid mobilization that the BJP says, if I take out a procession asking for the demolition of a mosque, I can get millions of Indians to participate in that movement, which they did. And once they came into power, they figured out how to desecularize the constitution through such things as they have done. So like I told you, the ban on beef is not because of a religious reason. That is not cited. It is said, the constitution, the article refers to specifically the fact that we need more milk. Today, India is a net exporter of milk. So we don't have that problem. There were very few tractors in the 50s when the BJP asked for a ban. So the BJP manifesto in the 50s said that the soil should not be broken with a tractor. You have to use a bull. They did not want tractors. And one reason for that is that they didn't want slaughter of the bulls either. Once they came into power, they figured out that if we go after Muslim personal law, if we go after what they eat, if we go after who they love, if we go after where they live, there is a law in Gujarat. It's called the Disturbed Areas Act. It is an old law from 1984, but it was tightened recently in 2019. The law says that if a Hindu and a Muslim want to buy or rent property from one another, they have to take the permission of the state. And foreigners can rent and buy property in cities in Gujarat where Gujarati Muslims cannot. And so I think they learned, to go back to the question, they learned how to do it. And now I think they've mastered it, which is why I think we will see a lot more of it.
I'll ask a last question, Aakar. How do you respond to this hate against, I can understand against religions, against minorities, but why are these people hating science?
So I don't think they necessarily hate science, but I think that with all cultures in the world that think of themselves as being ancient, the idea that we have imported something modern which we did not have is not really acceptable. So modern surgery, oh, we had it before. Or modern sort of aviation, oh, we had it before. And I think that because of this lack of security that we have as a culture, saying that our contributions are not necessarily recognized, we have turned towards the fact that what we have, that cow dung has a medicinal value which the world doesn't recognize, and we'll show it to them. I think that is where, that's what the instinct is.
Aakar, we'll have to call it a close because our host, the speaker, Shamshir, is here. This is venue. Thank you. Thank you for it.
Thank you very much, all of you, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the insightful conversation and your valuable time. As a gesture of our respect and gratitude, may I invite our Honorable Secretary, Kerala Legislature Secretariat, to present the mementos to our chief guests. Sir, please. Thank you all.
അടുത്തതായി ഈ വേദിയിൽ ശ്രീ എൻ ഷംസി സർ, ശ്രീ എൻ സുധീർ സർ എന്നിവരുടെ ഡയലോഗ് സെക്ഷൻ ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. KLIBF